Do you like violence? Not exactly something we ask ourselves when booting up a video game, right? I mean, I've never had that thought cross my mind while stomping on a Goomba. But if you stop and think about it for a second, violence is everywhere in games. We engage with it constantly yet rarely pause to question why. The debate over video game violence has been going on for decades and, honestly, it's been beaten to death. But here's the thing. I'd wager most of us don't reflect on it while we're playing. Not unless a game forces us to do so. And few titles confront our relationship with violence as directly and uncomfortably as Hotline Miami. Developed by Jonathan Developed by Jonathan
Jonathan Söderström.
Developed by Jonathan Söderström and Dennis Vedin under their studio Denaton Games. This 2012 indie masterpiece became an overnight success. What makes Hotline Miami so unique is how it revels in violence while critiquing it. Taking clear inspiration from Drive's aesthetic and morally complex brutality, Denaton Games twisted those ideas into something surreal, chaotic, and profoundly unsettling. At first glance, Hotline Miami might seem like nothing more than mindless carnage. But beneath this neon-soaked bloodbath lurks an uncomfortable question. Why do we enjoy this so much? Throughout this video, I'll occasionally reference points from my previous video on Drive. It's not required viewing, but it will give you some added context for how Hotline Miami borrows from and transforms the film's ideas. And finally, be warned. There's spoilers ahead. And many bodies. At its core, Hotline Miami is a fast-paced top-down action game where you dash through levels peacefully sunsetting enemies. After each level, you're graded from S, which is top tier, to F, which is the bottom tier. Scores hinge on a variety of factors like how quickly you completed the level, your creativity with weapons and tactics, and your willingness to take risks. But the most important factor is combos. Chain kills together in quick succession and your score skyrockets. A single very long combo is usually worth more than separate smaller combos. This subtle yet clever design pushes players into playing with reckless aggression. The faster, riskier, and more chaotic your violence, the greater the rewards, both in points and in how powerful it makes it feel. Sure, you could breeze through without chasing scores, but then what would be the point in playing? Additionally, the game incentivizes you by tying scores with unlocking new masks and weapons. This gamification of violence feels kinda satirical. It's like the game is dangling shiny new toys in front of you, like how you dangle a bunch of keys in front of a baby. Speaking of shiny new toys, let's talk about weapons. Levels start you with nothing but your fists. Punches knock enemies down but won't finish the job unless you follow up with an execution. That's where weapons come in. And they're everywhere, scattered across the levels or taken from fallen foes. They come in all shapes and sizes, from knives, to pool cues, to pans of boiling water. The game wants you to revel in your options. It's all about excessive, creative violence. In a pinch, you can also throw your weapons at enemies, which knocks them down or in some cases kills them outright. Then there are guns. They're powerful, but loud. A single gunshot will bring enemies swarming in, which makes them risky, but also very useful for baiting foes into ambushes. And if you really want to lean into the game's brutality, executions are the way to go. Knock an enemy down and you can finish them with whatever's in your hands, or with your bare fist for that matter. You want to commit executions as often as possible, since they extend combos and usually provide decent points. It's another way the game rewards you for a violent spectacle. Some executions are particularly savage. For example, if you get really close to an enemy unarmed, you can literally rip out their throat with your bare hands. It is so over the top. You can't execute enemies with firearms, but they do let you take enemies hostage. You can drag them around as a human shield against gunfire or just snap their necks. Melee enemies don't care about hostages though, so be careful. Of course, weapons are useless without targets. Most of the enemies you'll be fighting are faceless goons who all die in one hit. You'll be mowing these guys down by the dozens. But then, there's a superior race of men with girth. I'm not joking. These heavies charge at you, wrecking your shit in one hit, and are completely immune to melee attacks. Guns are the only real answer, but even then, bullets just make them bleed out slowly. Only a shotgun blast drops them instantly. Which raises a question. Why isn't everyone in this universe trying to gain girth? Seriously, if gaining extra mass makes you immune to melee attacks, why wouldn't you try to get utterly corpulent? Then there are dogs. Fast, aggressive, and capable of catching you off guard. They're more of an annoyance than a real threat, to be honest with you, but they can be dangerous if overlooked. As for level design, all the violence plays out in tight, confined spaces linked by narrow hallways, forcing quick, decisive action. You can scout ahead with the aim button and try to strategize your approach, but once you commit to a plan, you're all in. It's like bungee jumping. You look down, brace yourself, and then jump. That same adrenaline spike hits when you burst into a room and carve through enemies in a perfect flowing sequence. But the catch is you'll be chasing that feeling, because you will die. A lot. You're not a superhero. You're just one guy, one mistake away from death, storming buildings full of armed gangsters. But once you learn enemy placement and nail the rhythm, the frustration melts away. That's when playing Hotline Miami becomes an empowering experience and you start feeling like a real badass. Do you know what else is badass? The music. Hotline Miami's synthwave soundtrack filled with pulsating techno beats is legendary. For many, this game was a gateway drug to synthwave, helping to popularize the genre alongside its featured artists. Synthwave, with its mix of nostalgic 80s electronic vibes and modern production, gives the game a retro-futuristic feel. It not only cements Hotline Miami's late 1980s setting, but also feeds into its surreal dreamlike quality. The visuals complement this perfectly. Garish cars, nightclubs, and the tacky decor of a mob boss's mansion all fit the game's exaggerated, chaotic action. A scanline overlay gives the impression that you're watching the game on an old CRT television set. But the real genius is how the music interacts with the gameplay. Beyond its retro allure, it reinforces the game's hypnotic quality. The thumping beats and the pulsing rhythms sync perfectly with the action, dragging you into a trance of violence. And then, silence. The moment the level ends, the soundtrack is replaced by a low droning. You're left alone, forced to walk back through the level, past all the carnage you caused. The high is gone and the come down sets in. It's a brilliant contrast. One moment you're lost in the rhythm, the next you're staring at the aftermath, forced to ask, why did I do this? It's one of Hotline Miami's most effective tricks. The masks in Hotline Miami are another interesting stylistic choice. Every time Jacket puts one on, he's shedding his humanity. Fun fact, the devs originally thought about making the masks based on horror movie villains, before switching to animals, and honestly, I think that was a good call. The animal masks are more iconic and less derivative than a bunch of Jason Voorhees knockoffs would have been. Each mask also serves as a gameplay modifier. During an interview, one of the guys from their publisher, Devolver Digital, mistakenly announced it as a feature. So the devs scrambled to implement the feature and it turned out to be one of the game's standout mechanics. You start with Richard, the chicken mask, which has no special abilities. But as you progress, you unlock more masks that alter gameplay, adding a good degree of variety. Some give minor tweaks, like starting with a knife, while others can dramatically alter how you play. Tony, for instance, turns punches lethal, and since punches are faster than most melee weapons, you become a one-man wrecking crew right out the gate. Unfortunately, it's useless against heavies. Nothing beats girth. Still, the mask allows you to pick up guns or any other weapon for that matter, so the Tony mask absolutely cheeses most levels. Other masks are more gimmicky. The Oscar mask, for example, makes everything dark as shit, while the Nigel mask reverses your controls, giving you the real ketamine experience. There's even a mask that translates all dialogue into French, naturally making the game significantly worse. The funniest part is it's called Phil for some reason, serving as a not-so-subtle reminder of a certain ex-game dev. Personally, I always use the speed boost masks like Graham and Brandon. But at the end of the day, none of these masks matter without the man wearing them. So, who exactly is our protagonist? Jacket, Hotline Miami's silent protagonist, is defined almost entirely by his actions. But here's the thing, Jacket isn't really a character in the traditional sense. Other people talk to him, but he never answers. He just stands there. This deliberate absence of identity blurs the line between Jacket and the player, making one thing clear: his violence is your violence. So why call him Jacket? Well, he has no canon name, but he does sport a distinctive varsity jacket, one that's suspiciously similar to that worn by Ryan Gosling's character in Drive. And this is no coincidence. Hotline Miami openly draws inspiration from Drive, with Jacket serving as a darker, more unhinged reflection of Gosling's Driver. Both men are killers, caught in cycles of violence, but where the Driver uses violence sparingly, almost like a last resort, Jacket by contrast is chaos personified. He charges into rooms with reckless abandon. Even their tools tell us something. The Driver wears gloves, which serves as a symbolic barrier between himself and the violence he commits, while Jacket wears masks, transforming into a new persona during his kills. In the case of the Driver, the audience acts as silent witnesses to his violence. Our engagement is primarily voyeuristic. Hotline Miami doesn't allow that separation. With Jacket, we're intimately involved, with his violence only being possible because of us playing. This connection is vividly highlighted through Jacket's surreal dream sequences where he is repeatedly confronted by masked figures. Rasmus, the owl, hostile and confrontational. Don Juan, the horse, gentle and comforting. And Richard, the dominant persona. Richard's role is particularly crucial. He persistently asks Jacket uncomfortable questions like, "Do you like hurting other people?" Of course, it's not really Jacket being interrogated. Remember, you the player control Jacket. His violence is your violence. Ultimately, the Driver and Jacket represent two distinct relationships with violence. The Driver at least fights to protect something he values. Jacket, however, is purely reactive, following cryptic orders for no obvious reasons. In the end, both leave nothing behind. No future and no lasting relationships. Only a grim trail of bodies. With all that in mind, let's dive into Jacket's story. At first glance, Hotline Miami's plot seems minimalistic, perhaps even non-existent. A string of cryptic phone calls, surreal dream sequences, and a whole lot of dead Russians. Yet beneath the surface, there's actually a lot going on. The narrative is fragmented and at times deliberately disorienting. So instead of a strict play-by-play, I'll focus on key moments and themes. The game opens with a short tutorial led by this hobo, followed by a dream sequence. 3 masked figures confront Jacket, each delivering cryptic, unsettling messages. Their presence sets the game's bizarre tone right from the start. Jacket awakens from this dream on the 3rd of April, 1989. He starts the day and... man, look at this place. There isn't even a mattress on that other bed. You check the answering machine where a mysterious phone call instructs you to vaguely clear out a location teeming with Russian gangsters. You then collect your first mask, the iconic Richard mask, from a package at the door. So off you go. Oh wait, better close the front door first. Alright, let's see. Okay. Come on, you... Come on, you... What? Why is it... Oh my god. Why is it like this? It's just a door! Yeah. Oh, there you go. Once you arrive, the action begins. A fast, brutal, and utterly uncompromising bloodbath. You kill every enemy inside, retrieve a briefcase, and stash it in a dumpster. But then something unexpected happens. A homeless man appears to defend his turf. Oh wait. Isn't he the guy from the tutorial? Maybe he's friendly. Oh. You bash his head in, and then Jacket promptly vomits. This rare moment of remorse starkly contrasts Jacket's typically cold demeanor. Despite mowing down countless gangsters without hesitation, this one act shakes him. The homeless man was innocent, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's as if this is his last flicker of moral awareness before the violence fully consumes him. The death of his innocence, if you will. Or perhaps yours. Afterwards, Jacket stops by a convenience store for snacks. Probably hungry after all that vomiting. Behind the counter is a character affectionately named Beard by fans, primarily for, well, his beard. But Beard isn't just hair. He's everywhere. Whether it's at a convenience store, video rental, or pizzeria, Beard appears repeatedly, always offering free items with his signature catchphrase, "It's on the house." Yeah, I'm starting to see why this guy needs multiple jobs if he keeps giving shit away for free. And yet most players probably just take the freebie and move on to the next level. His constant presence feels almost hallucinatory, a symbol of Jacket's deteriorating mental state. And that's the gameplay loop. Wake up, answer the phone, kill everyone, grab your post-murder treat, repeat. The repetition reduces life to nothing but slaughter and reward, until Jacket has no identity outside of the violence, and you, the player, are caught in the same loop. In Chapter 3, Decadence, Jacket rescues a woman known only as the girlfriend or the girl. At first, she assumes Jacket's there to kill her. A safe assumption, I guess. You can even try to leave her behind, but she'll call you out on it, forcing Jacket to take her home. Interestingly, it doesn't seem like she's being held there against her will. After all, as you can see, she could leave at any time. Whether she sees him as a savior or whether it's some kind of Stockholm syndrome, it's left unclear. What is clear is her presence humanizes Jacket. This dynamic mirrors the driver's brief connection with Irene in Drive. For the first time, Jacket has a chance at something resembling a normal life. You see it reflected in his apartment. Slowly, it becomes tidier and more furnished. Even Jacket's disturbing collection of serial killer-style newspaper clippings vanish. This visual storytelling signals her positive influence on his life. But while his outward life improves, his subconscious rots. Jacket's dream sequences grow filthier and more chaotic as the game progresses, suggesting that beneath the surface he's unraveling. In Chapter 5, Full House, you can open a manhole cover with a crowbar. Inside the sewers, this guy called Jones insists everything is just a bad dream, before passing away. Jacket never responds and he can take Jones' mask if he wishes, which ironically amplifies the gore of your kills. Chapter 7, Neighbors, culminates in one of the game's most memorable moments, a showdown with another phone call vigilante known as Biker. Armed with a cleaver and wearing a motorcycle helmet, Biker poses a genuine challenge. Beating him requires patience as he can kill you in seconds. After defeating him, the post-mission sequence takes a strange turn. Beard cryptically mentions, "Something terrible happened tonight. I haven't felt this way since San Francisco." Wait, what happened to San Francisco? Oh. All joking aside, this line is left intentionally ambiguous and serves as yet another thread that won't be fully explained until the sequel. It adds to the mounting sense of mystery, leaving you to wonder about the larger world unfolding behind the scenes. In Chapter 8, Push It, you hit the disco. It's pretty cool in here with the music and all, but is it normal for a nightclub to have dogs roaming around? Anyway, by this point in the game, Jacket's hallucinations start to intensify. After completing the mission, you return to Beard's shop only for him to inform you that none of this is real, adding to the growing sense of unreality. By the way, see that guy standing by the sink? Remember him. He'll be important very soon. Chapter 9, Crackdown, shatters the routine entirely. Mid-mission, a SWAT team raids the building. The surviving mobsters surrender, assuming arrest positions, while the SWAT officers begin patrolling the building. You can knock them down temporarily, but they're otherwise invincible, leaving you with only one option: escape. Things get trippier in the post-mission sequence where Jacket is confronted by a grotesque zombie-like vision of a mobster and his dog. This eerie encounter suggests he's haunted not just by the lives he's taken, but by the lingering hostility of those he's killed. Even in death, they seem to despise him. The gruesome character portraits are also a stark reminder of the consequences of Jacket's and by extension the player's violence. When you enter the pizza parlor, things take an even darker turn. Beard is dead. In his place stands an ominous figure. It's the same man standing by the sink in the previous post-level scene. His name is Richter, and he's a bit unfriendly. What do you want? Could you hurry up? We're closing soon. Man, talk about bad customer service. He may as well have just told you to fuck off. Chapter 11, Deadline, begins somewhat unusually. The phone call at the start of the level ends with a Morse code signal for SOS. I'm sure that's not foreshadowing anything. The mission plays out as usual until an ambush. A van screeches in, and enemies start pouring out like clowns from a clown car, while this bellend starts chucking Molotov cocktails at you. Luckily, the enemies aren't fireproof, so you can bait them into the flames. After you survive for a little while, the Molotov thrower surrenders, but Jacket executes him anyway in one of the game's most brutal, over-the-top finishers. The static flickers cutting through the scene suggest it may not have happened exactly as we're seeing it, hinting that Jacket's perception isn't reliable. Then the game blindsides you. Jacket returns home to a grisly scene. Ah, there you are. I was wondering when you'd be getting back. Well, let's get this over with then. Jacket finds himself in a dream world with Richard, and he doesn't mince words. This won't end well. Soon you will be all alone. What you do from here on won't serve any purpose. You'll never see the whole picture. And it's all your fault. He's basically spoiling the rest of the game's plot, and as you progress, the truth behind his words will become painfully clear. Jacket is then instructed to go across the hall for some rest, only to find himself comatose in the hospital bed. His head literally explodes at the sight. Yeah, that's right, everything up to this point has been Jacket's coma-induced hallucination. This twist explains much of the game's bizarre occurrences, the zombies, Beard's mysterious omnipresence, and the dreamlike visitations from the masked figures are all manifestations of Jacket's subconscious grappling with the events of the past few months. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is just the overplayed, it's all a dream cliche, right? And I get that, but personally I think it works here because the game has been telegraphing it from the very beginning. From Jones's dying words that it's all a bad dream, to Baird's warning that none of this is real. All of that led to this point. The reveal feels earned, and not cheap. This revelation, however, does raise some new questions. If Jacket's account has been proven unreliable, then how much of what we saw actually happened? Did the girlfriend truly impact Jacket positively, or was it wishful thinking? Did other characters behave as Jacket remembers, or have they been warped by his coma dreams? This moment also marks a turning point. Jacket is no longer a mindless pawn following the orders of mysterious phone calls. From this point on, his violent acts are driven by a singular personal motivation: revenge. He is now the prime mover of the rest of the events in the game, and we go along for the ride. In the preceding 12th chapter, Trauma, Jacket wakes up in a hospital bed. He's been comatose for weeks and is now the prime suspect in a major criminal investigation. Yeah, no surprise there. Interestingly, the policeman mentions that the doctors couldn't save Jacket's girlfriend. This is significant because it confirms that, at least from the authorities' perspective, the girl really was Jacket's girlfriend. While not definitive proof that Jacket's earlier accounts of their relationship were accurate, it does strengthen the notion that their relationship was real, adding emotional weight to his quest for revenge. Now that I think about it, it's a little odd that the girlfriend is never given a name. By defining her entirely through her connection to Jacket, the game subtly critiques how women are frequently depicted in violent media, not as fully developed characters but as plot devices that primarily serve male protagonists. Anyway, Jacket learns Richter is in custody and decides it's time to act. This level breaks the usual flow of the game's violence as it primarily focuses on stealth. Jacket is in a vulnerable state. He can't attack and must navigate carefully through the hospital while being hindered by severe migraines whenever he moves too quickly. It's not particularly difficult provided that you're patient. Get it? Patient? Once you finally make it out of the hospital, Jacket returns to his apartment. The fuck? They trashed his car. His apartment is in a similarly shitty state. There's even some strange red symbol inside the apartment. If you've been paying attention, you might have noticed it in various other places throughout the game. Keep this symbol in mind, it's actually fairly important to the overarching plot. After changing his clothes, Jacket storms the police precinct in the aptly named chapter Assault. Here, the enemies are cops, though they function just like the mobsters. Although unlike the mobsters, it's even more difficult to claim that Jacket is righteous here. The police are just doing their jobs if you think about it. The final section of the level pits you against the police chief. Okay boys, the bastard will be here any second now. It's time for us to show him what we're made of. Remember your training and play it safe. Remember your training and play it safe? Wow, I guess standing near the windows to get shot is playing it safe, right? After dealing with the chief, Jacket reaches Richter's cell, where Richter reveals he's also been manipulated by the same mysterious phone calls. Richter admits ignorance regarding the call's true origin, but claims the police may know more. In the evidence room, Jacket finds Richter's mask and the police files he mentioned. At this point, the game presents you with a moral choice: strangle Richter or spare him. On the one hand, Richter murdered the girlfriend, which seemingly justifies revenge. But on the other hand, he, like Jacket, is merely another pawn manipulated by unseen forces. In a way, Richter and Jacket are two sides of the same coin. Richter serves as a reflection of Jacket, forcing the player to confront the consequences of their own actions from a different perspective. Through Richter, we're reminded that Jacket's victims likely see him the same way that we see Richter, as an agent of death sent without warning or explanation. Ultimately, the game is testing you. Have you fully embraced the cycle of violence, or do you still have the capacity for restraint? Have you given in to the savagery? Or are you motivated by something other than mindless violence? Regardless of what you did with Richter, Jacket returns home one last time. Using the police files, he traces the phone calls to a nightclub run by the Russian mob, named the Golden Truck Stop. In the penultimate chapter, Vengeance, Jacket storms the place, massacres everyone inside, and corners the terrified manager, who spills the address of the mob's leader. As thanks, Jacket bashes his head in. That leads us into the finale, Showdown. Surprisingly, the mansion's security is sparse, with only a single mobster and two heavies standing between Jacket and the boss. It seems the boss isn't too concerned about an attack. Inside, Jacket finally comes face to face with the leader of the Russian mob, known only as the Father. Look at him biting his lip. I can't tell if he's close to busting a nut, or if he's a second away from losing his shit. He makes a cryptic remark suggesting that Jacket is just one of several people who have been killing his men. Yes, his men. This line plants a seed of doubt about the true nature of the phone calls, or whether they actually come from the Russian mafia, but we'll pick this up later. First, the Father unleashes two panthers to attack Jacket. Yes, actual panthers. Your goal is to grab a trophy and club each panther twice with it. If you're careful, you can actually cheese this fight by hiding behind the fountain and striking as they approach. After dealing with the panthers, you have to fight the bodyguard, who wields a katana. You can only hit her by throwing the trophy at her, which knocks her down. Once downed, she tries to crawl away, so you need to finish her off. If you're smart, you can let her crawl towards one of the fountains before executing her, as she drops several throwing knives that will be crucial for the next phase. With his protectors gone, the Father directly remarks on Jacket's extraordinary capacity for violence, questioning where his bloodlust comes from. It's a striking moment not just for Jacket but for you as the player. Here the game delivers a pointed critique at you, a blunt acknowledgement of just how brutal your actions have been throughout the game. The timing is deliberate. At the very end, when your path is set, the game reflects your violence right back at you. It's a sharp reminder that, despite any justifications you've crafted for Jacket's actions, or for your own as a player, you've been complicit in this cycle of bloodshed. Finally, the Father attacks with dual SMGs. To damage him, you must wait for him to reload, then use the bodyguard's throwing knives to hit his hands. After 2 hits, the father realizes his defeat and takes his own life to deny Jacket the satisfaction of killing him. Then the phone on the father's desk rings. A voice on the other end casually complains about the noise. Jacket then picks up the handgun the father used to kill himself and heads up the elevator. Upstairs, he finds the grandfather, the true patriarch of the mob. Unlike his defiant son, the grandfather offers no resistance, seemingly exhausted by a lifetime of violence and power struggles. His acceptance of death reflects what awaits a man who's survived a violent life. With a single shot, Jacket obliges, granting the old man the rest he craves. Stepping onto the balcony, Jacket removes his mask and studies it for a moment before tossing it aside. This act feels like a rejection of the violent persona he's carried throughout the game. Without the mask, he's no longer the cold, detached killer we've been playing as. It's a rare glimpse of his humanity. Lighting a cigarette, Jacket takes out a photograph and examines it silently. We never see what's on it. It could be a reminder of the girl. It could be a memory of a past life. But whatever it is, Jacket lets it go, releasing it into the wind. Its meaning is left ambiguous, but the act of discarding it symbolizes his departure from the endless cycle of violence. And just like that, it's over. Yet the ending leaves more questions than answers. Jacket's rampage began with a series of anonymous phone calls, sending him on a bloody quest to kill Russian mobsters. Even his eventual quest for revenge feels hollow. The person he sought to avenge is gone, and his life lies in ruins. The violence all seems pointless. Then there's the father's cryptic remark, "You must be one of the people killing my men." It suggests that the Russian mob wasn't behind the phone calls. I mean, why would they target their own people? Clearly someone else is pulling the strings, manipulating events from the shadows. But who are they, and why did they do all of this? For now, the answers remain elusive. The date is the 13th of May, 1989. We're rewinding a few months back to follow Biker in his own mini-campaign. I bet you didn't see that coming, right? Given the date, it's clear his story overlaps directly with Jacket's. We call him Biker because, well, he rides a motorbike. We begin with him shaking down a bartender in a pig mask, demanding to know more about the phone calls. He wants answers, and more importantly, he wants out. The terrified bartender reluctantly points him towards someone hiding out at a Chinese restaurant. It's immediately noticeable that Biker speaks, which is a striking contrast to Jacket's silence. Unlike Jacket, who serves as a blank avatar for the player, Biker has clear motives and a personality right from the get-go. While Jacket mindlessly obeys the calls, Biker questions them. He only joined for the thrill, but now he professes his boredom and demands answers. It's hard not to see Biker as a meta-reflection of the player. Now that Jacket's story has ended, you're probably done with the mindless carnage and want some answers, just like the Biker. The Biker then heads to the restaurant. Unlike Jacket, he doesn't get any masks to alter his playstyle. He's locked to a cleaver for melee and 3 throwing knives per level. You can retrieve the knives if they hit a wall, but if they hit an enemy or fly out of bounds, they're gone. This forces the player to adopt a high-risk close-quarters combat style, perfectly suited to Biker's thrill-seeking personality. After tearing through the restaurant, Biker confronts the frightened technician who reveals a crucial detail. The mysterious phone calls come from a service called Phonecalls. Disturbingly, he indicates the whole operation has a political agenda, something that is clearly frightening to both the technician and Biker himself. At the very least, Biker's intense emotional reactions throughout the chapter suggest there's far more to his motives than mere boredom. Now's a good time to mention a level I intentionally skipped earlier, Clean Hit. In Jacket's story, it feels like any other mission, but in the context of Biker's arc, it's very important. The call at the beginning of the level mentions that our receptionist went home due to stomach problems. This receptionist is almost certainly Biker, considering that the dates match for both levels, the 13th of May, 1989. This chapter involves assassinating 3 VIP targets, which are insinuated to be politicians connected to the Russian mafia. This lines up perfectly with the technician's revelation of a political conspiracy. It's likely Biker understood the significance of this mission when he presumably received the phone call for it, which pushed him to start digging for answers. By the way, there's these 2 janitors hanging around throughout this level. Pretty shady, right? Well, remember them. They'll be important very soon. Whoever is behind the phone call conspiracy isn't happy about Biker bailing on his last job, and that becomes obvious in the next chapter, Fun and Games. But before that, we get a glimpse of Biker's apartment, and I've got to say, everything is so rad. He's got a computer setup, a DJ table, a keytar, and whatever this is. Clearly he's doing pretty well for himself. Biker's pad radiates confidence and flair, while Jacket screams isolation and decay. It makes Jacket seem even more like a creep and a bum, to be honest with you. Both men couldn't be living more differently, despite their shared involvement in the phone call massacres. Just goes to show how expansive the conspiracy really is. Though it does make you wonder, how exactly does Biker afford all this? Can you imagine this guy day trading? The phone call at the start of this chapter confirms that Biker bailed on the previous mission. You missed your delivery last night. The caller also ominously warns us our clients will not tolerate further delays. It's a thinly veiled threat, and interestingly, Biker complies by carrying out this mission. But this compliance feels strategic. He's basically stalling for time to dig deeper into who's behind everything. By the next chapter, Prank Call, Biker directly disobeys the mysterious phone caller, instead storming Phonecalls' office in search of answers. This is the same building Jacket attacked at the end of Neighbors, and now we get to experience it from Biker's perspective. You could massacre everyone as reflected in Jacket's recollection of the mission, but what would be the point? Eventually, Biker reaches the manager's office. After a brief, violent encounter, he accesses the manager's computer. That's when Jacket barges in. Now here's where perspectives deviate. In Jacket's recollection, Biker immediately attacks without warning. But in Biker's version, he actually tries to warn Jacket, only for Jacket to stand there mute before charging in. Technically, there is a canon outcome here, as confirmed by certain details in the sequel, but the actual events of this encounter remain a little murky. Whose perspective is the truth? Well, in Jacket's case, his memory of the event comes from a coma-induced dream state, not exactly reliable. On the other hand, Biker's version could also be a distortion of the truth. Additionally, Jacket's silence might have been more of a stylistic choice by the developers rather than reality. In fact, in a Reddit AMA, Dennis Vedin basically confirmed that this was the case. So, in actuality, Jacket might have actually said something in this scene, but we just never got to see it. Honestly, the truth is probably somewhere in between. Just like everything else in Hotline Miami, ambiguity is the point. It's showing us how violence fractures memory and perception, how 2 people can live through the same moment and walk away with completely different versions of it. Neither man sees the full picture clearly, and neither do we. Regardless, Biker now has the conspirators' address, leading directly to the final chapter, Resolution. The phone calls aren't even trying to be subtle anymore. Hi, it's Ben from Miami Funeral Parlor. I'm just calling to tell you we have the tombstone you ordered, done and ready to be delivered. With a little luck, you should be getting it before the weekend. Doesn't get much clearer than that. Arriving at the conspirators' hideout, Biker immediately spots one of the janitors from Clean Hit. This level stands out for offering two branching outcomes depending on whether or not you've uncovered a hidden password. Without the password, Biker heads down into the sewers, discovering the janitor's hidden base. Animal masks, blueprints, phone lines. It ticks all the boxes. They're clearly the masterminds behind the phone calls. What follows is a confrontation where they shit-talk you. You've done worse things than we have, haven't you? They were all scum anyway, weren't they? You think they deserve to live? Do you? Additionally, the janitors' names are Dennis and Jonathan, meaning they're literal stand-ins for the game's developers. Very meta. Once the conversation ends, you're presented with a choice. Kill the janitors or let them live. The choice here is significant, but not for the reasons you would expect. I'll dive into why later. Whatever you choose, the chapter ends with Biker riding off and the credits rolling. But if you do have the password, unlocked by collecting hidden letters throughout Jacket's campaign, things play out differently. What do the letters spell? Right, now, let's see. Brian is a show tune. Nah, that doesn't make any sense. Wait. Entering this password provides Biker with information on the conspiracy, allowing him to confront the janitors with leverage. This time, they spill everything. They're part of an ultra-nationalist organization called 50 Blessings, which is a nod to America's 50 states. Remember the strange red symbols scattered throughout the game? Turns out it's a bastardization of the American flag that serves as the group's logo. Their ultimate goal is to topple a political alliance known as the Russo-American Coalition. The details are vague, but the implications are huge. They ominously describe this entire operation as merely a test run, with bigger nationwide plans ahead. Even with the full truth revealed, you're again faced with the same choice: kill the janitors or spare them. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter. They're just pawns in something far larger. The significance of this decision lies precisely in its futility, highlighting how powerless you truly are. Even Biker, for all his bravado, can't do anything but escape. And that brings us to the real heart of this ending: its unsatisfying nature. Biker gets the answers, but they don't matter. The conspiracy remains intact. The cycle of violence continues, and your choice is ultimately meaningless. From a meta-narrative perspective, it's even more cynical. The developers pulled a final bait-and-switch. What began as a surreal exploration of violence and identity ends with the revelation that you've been nothing more than a pawn in someone else's political game. The sting comes from realizing that any reasons you thought you had for your violence, whether that be for thrill, revenge, or survival, is irrelevant. While Drive is a third-person exploration of how violence alienates a person from their loved ones, Hotline Miami pushes further by alienating you, the player, from your own violent actions. From the very start, the game keeps asking, why are you doing all of this? And honestly, I don't know. I'm grasping at straws trying to articulate something concrete. Maybe I wanted to see what would happen next. Maybe it was because the gameplay was genuinely fun. And for most games, that's more than enough justification. Hell, maybe even for Hotline Miami, that's acceptable. But that's the point. The developers know you're here for fun, or to chase meaning, and they weaponize this against you. There's no real resolution or satisfying catharsis, only the unsettling realization that your reasons don't hold up under scrutiny. Maybe that's the true purpose of Hotline Miami. Not to provide answers, but to deny them. To leave you suspended in ambiguity. to leave you with that lingering cognitive dissonance that forces you to confront your own relationship with violence. But who really knows? Whatever the case may be, it's time to close the door in this chapter. Oh, come on. Oh, man. Why doesn't it just close? Why did they do this? What? There's more.